Hello, welcome back to another edition of Addicted2. We're going to get connected here back with my buddy Craig, and we're going to continue the conversation that we were having from last week.
Thanks for having me back.
So, we were just talking during that break there, and what was that saying you were?
Oh, no matter how far down the road I go, or I may be further down the road, but I'm still the same distance away from the ditch.
I love that.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely something that everybody has to remember when you're in recovery is the fact that it's not that far. If we veer away from the things that are working for us, it doesn't take much for us to veer off path.
That's a good message because I don't care if we're 10, 15, 20, 30 years into it. Things can rear up, anxiety, fear, whatever it is, and I call it the negative power,
Yeah,
can come back and bite you. I've gone to people's funerals.
yeah, yeah. Me
But
too.
I wanted to get back to so one of the things that really blew me away was when I went to see you in Inglewood. And just because I have written lyrics and hung around people that have written music, and I had no idea how you were going to pull this off. But I think there were 16 people, and you all decided at the end of that writing season that you were going to collaborate together.
Yes.
And I'm sitting there, and you guys are describing this. I'm thinking 16 people. It's hard enough to write a song with, there was McCartney and Lennon, right?
Yeah.
There's Jagger and Richards.
Yeah.
There was Bernie Taupin and Elton John. There was usually two people, and any more they didn't really want in the mix until after, because it's just I guess they figure too many chefs. But then all of a sudden, you guys pull out this 16 people piece called Harmonies.
Yeah.
And I just want you to talk about that for a bit because I was just blown away by it.
It was, yeah, and I mean, believe me, I was thinking the same thing that you were when they were talking about deciding to do it. It's like we should do this 16-person co-write, and I'm thinking this is not going to work. How are we going to get, So it was interesting because the first thing we did is we threw around ideas in the group, ideas of what the song should be about, and one of the members, Tim Gurrow, he said, "What about harmony?" And they knew that I'm a better music writer than I am a lyric writer, so they put me in charge of doing the music on it. And the person in charge, Nancy, sent me home and said, "You know what? Let's just see what you can come up with and stuff like that." And I'm on my way home driving, and I just I'm thinking harmony, harmony, and then so I started to get this melody going. And then I sent it off, and they put somebody in charge of all the lyrics. And what they did is Sonia was the one who was in charge of all the lyrics. I was in charge of the music. I had two other people that I got together with and just added a couple of, worked on the verse and what the verse would sound like, and then, and then a pre-chorus and bridge. So we kind of got that around, left it loose because we didn't know what the melody was going to be lyrically. And then Sonia had everybody just send everything that they wanted to as far as what does harmony mean to you, and just kind of piecing it all together. So that's how it ultimately had to. If you think about, you can't have 16 people in a room just shouting out, hey, we should do this, or here, play this chord, or here, this line and stuff like that. There were three people who were kind of just taking all of the information and trying to put it together into the puzzle. And that's ultimately how it came out.
But when I was sitting there and you guys were describing a little bit about how it came together, and then you performed it with the 16 people.
Yeah.
Like it just blew me away.
Right on.
All the layers. And the reason I bring that up, I think, is because it brings home a great point. That in our addiction, we're so lost.
Absolutely.
And yet in sobriety, somebody can come to you with the problem and you think to yourself, man, there's no way. Whether we're interested in it or not interested in it, or we don't think there's a way, but we've got the clarity of thought to think, wait a minute. If there's a will, maybe there's a way. Maybe there is a way.
Yeah.
And if you would have brought that to most artists, they would have said, no, 16 people? No. But yet, how many people are there in an orchestra?
Yeah, I don't know exactly, but there's...
Right?
Yeah.
I remember seeing my daughter played flute. And it was just in early high school. And I'm looking over, and there's a 3-piece band with drums, guitar, and bass, and they're a full rhythm section.
Yeah.
And I'm looking over at this, I'm thinking, this is high school? And then they've got the strings and the horns, and I'm thinking, the complexity of this is insane.
Yeah.
But this lady, who's a high school music teacher, puts it together. So, like I said, not to go off on too much, but I'm just saying it opens so many more doors on things that we didn't think were possible.
Yeah. It does. And I mean, there's so many things about, I mean, I could talk a week of podcasts on, how our thinking is so distorted and how it changes. And I mean, the one thing about it is my addiction, I isolated. I wouldn't have done this. I would have seen all of the differences in everybody than me. And yet when I got sober and then did this, I could see all the similarities that I had. These people had different music styles.
Oh, yeah.
And different voices, and they played different instruments, and they had different opinions than I did, and, different melody lines, but looking for the similarities. If you could find the similarities, and you're like, yeah, that's that'll work with that. That'll work with that. That's when everything changed. That little flip of a switch in the mindset. And that was just for this, but I'm talking about for pretty much everything in my life now.
Just thinking about the possibility that it could work.
Yeah.
Right? Like I said, it's a real metaphor for, I just remember sitting in the audience and thinking, wow, how they pulled all of this together, like you said, with all the different opinions, the layers, the voices, and brought it all back together. Just made me really think that it just showed what kind of possibilities there are.
Yeah.
So even now, when you're in and you're coming up to 13 years, what else do you attribute your success to? I know the music is a big part.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it had to do with a change in my mindset. And I somewhere, in recovery started to realize that how distorted my thinking was, and that, happiness was, pretty simple, or, the pursuit of happiness was pretty simple. If I could, be present, be humble, be grateful, and like I said, that flipping of a switch was so vital to it, instead of being, envious of something that somebody has that I don't have. If I could look at what I have and look down and look at the fact that somebody doesn't have what I have, and, just trying to find gratitude at a very, very, very basic level. Like, I'm just grateful that I got a roof over my head. There's people that don't. I have food today. I don't have to look for food. It's in the fridge. I don't have to think about, so yeah, maybe the neighbor's got a nicer house. Maybe Buddy's got a nicer car, and if I focus on that, and that can be a tough thing because society, if I'm watching TV commercials and the social media and stuff like that, it seems that they want me to want, because if I want, then I will buy. If I see something and they're kind of painting it to, you're not really happy, but if you have this, then you will be happy. So, I'm going off on a bit of a tangent, but it's something that if we're not careful and we don't practice gratitude, then, and if we don't practice humility is a huge one again. If if I don't think everybody's out there to get in my way, it's amazing how much different my life can be and how much more I can be a better person. If somebody's tailgating me, instead of thinking, why is he being such a, to me, he's in a hurry. Get out of his way. You get out of his way, you feel better about yourself. And just everything changes. Doing a couple of random acts of kindness for somebody that maybe you think is just, maybe not having the greatest day, and it's not about you. And the reason why I bring that up is because I wrote a song called Not About Me, or All About Me, sorry. The song is called All About Me, and it is about humility, and it is about that very thing that, you know what, yeah, people aren't just running around trying to piss me off because, and it's a flip of a switch, you know, um, envy to gratitude, and then humility. And then, of course, you and I talked about it, mindfulness and presence, the importance of, you know, if I can be in today, then I don't have the regrets of yesterday. I don't have the worries of tomorrow. Now, it's all easier said than done. This is something that has to be practiced every day. And I have to practice it every morning. I have to wake up with that intent because, as I said about the going down the road and only so far from the ditch, I'm only so far from the ditch. If I don't practice these things, the next thing I know, somebody's tailgating me and I'm getting worked up. But if I set myself up properly, then, I'm looking more to be of service. I'm looking more to be part of the solution. And that just makes everything change.
It does work. If you open the door for somebody to go into the store instead of trying to be the first to get to the door, it's a whole mind shift. And one of the tricks I've been able to teach myself, I pretend I'm on vacation.
Yeah.
I go to the gym, come back, have a little breakfast. I'm lucky I gave myself a hot tub for my sobriety because I used to smoke and drink. And so I do that. And I set up my day with the mindset that I'm on vacation, but I just got to go and do a few things. And then even if I hit traffic, I don't care.
Yeah.
Because I'm on vacation. And if it takes me another 5 minutes to get there, that's okay. Mind you, I was going to go up to a friend's trailer on this past weekend, and when I hit the traffic north of Calgary at 5 o'clock, I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
So again, we can get knocked off the pillar pretty quick, but I mean, I just figured out an alternate route.
But I love that you said that, because I mean, how many times I know with me, it's been more than a couple. I've gone to the grocery store and gotten really worked up because the person in front of me has taken too long, and then gotten in my car and hit traffic and just getting super worked up, and then gotten home and thinking about, why was I in a hurry to come back home? Because it's like, I wasn't late for anything.
And the other thing, I don't really like working out that much.
No, I don't either,
but I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And if I focused on the time, like the 20 minutes that I've got to run on the treadmill, it sucks.
Yeah.
But one of the tricks now is, how many songs can I get in?
Yeah.
So now, if I focus on, like this morning, I was listening to Hotel California, and then that went into the next thing. And when I focus on just, I'm moving, but when I'm focusing on listening to the music, the 20 minutes goes by quick, and I find that I didn't get enough songs in.
Yeah.
It's the whole change of perception.
It is. It totally is. Yeah. But those are things like, as we talked about, I think it's important that, to find your passion. I know you've found your passion. You're passionate about a lot of different things, and I admire you because you take on stuff, the book, the podcast, the company, and that's what we lose when we're drinking. And if we can gain that back, that's one of the things that we need to do to stay sober.
And I still need more invites to some more of your shows. I know you're doing a release.
Yeah.
And that's going to be
It's in October. And again, this is something that's I'm really proud of. I've been wanting to record and release an album for, oh, the better part of probably 35 years. And started it and then just didn't follow through. Started it, didn't follow through. And even in sobriety, I didn't. But I went into the studio in January, recorded a 10-song album called Solving the Happiness Equation.
Nice.
It is about the things that brought me unhappiness and the things that I do to bring me happiness. And it's just, it's been almost the perfect time for this, because these songs all kind of go together. If I would have done an album out 5 years ago, it would not have been the same songs, and it wouldn't have been near as good. These are heartfelt because they're, as I said, you know what? These are what I know. These are what I think about a lot. So it comes through in the music and the lyrics.
And that's all going to be on Spotify?
It's going to be on Spotify. I'm going to be releasing my first single mid-August. It's called Chains, which is about addiction.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll have you back. It'd be nice to be able to play some of it.
Yeah.
And then if we do, we won't have a copyright infringement,
there
because
you go.
own it.
Yeah.
Which is really cool, right?
Yeah. But I would love to, because like I said, these are songs, like I said, I got a song about humility. I got a song about addiction. I got songs, about gratitude, acceptance, because these are all things that I think about. I think about that without these, I'm not going to be happy, and things are going to go off the rails.
The funny thing, I was driving to a meeting with my roommate Pete, and again, I don't know if you know that. Have you ever heard the song "Amazing" by Aerosmith?
Yeah,
that's about recovery.
I didn't know that.
You didn't know that?
I didn't know that song was about recovery.
Okay,
I'm listening to it on the way home.
So listen to it on the way home.
Yeah.
And then tell me how you didn't know that. because it is so blaringly apparent. And Pete was like, "Oh my God, I had no idea." And it is an amazing song when you understand. But again, the reason I bring that up is because things can be right in our face.
Yeah.
And we don't see it.
I'm just going through the lyrics in my head right now, and I'm just thinking about some of them, and it's like, yeah, I can't believe I didn't think about that.
Yeah, that's exactly what it's about.
Yeah.
And the reason I know that is because I saw the acoustic version of Stephen singing it at a recovery place. And I'm guessing that they went to see him. I don't know the whole story, but his voice is a little bit raspy, and I'm thinking that he might have been there for his, it's no secret that he's
struggled.
He's struggled.
Yeah.
But he's very, very proud of that song. That's it's one of his favorite songs. Something else I wanted to touch on that I'm working on a lot, lady, is letting go.
Mm-hmm.
Or lady, lately. I just wanted to see what do you do to let something go?
I definitely I meditate. And depending on it, I can have a tough time with that as well. It's funny because I have, I talk about humility and I'm pretty good about being humble around people, but when it comes to things like letting go, things that I feel like I can maybe have control. My kids, if my kids are struggling, I have a real hard time letting go. And, trusting. And
we're full of fear.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that's where it all comes back down to that. And, every time I do, when I have a fear, I will write it down, and I will try and figure out what the core fear is. Because a lot of times what I think is I'm afraid of isn't as deep as what I actually am. It's like, okay, I'm afraid this will happen. Well, what happens if that happens? Well, then this is, and I got to do some digging before I can identify what the core is, how it affects me, not the person, but how it affects me before I'm able to address. It's like, okay, now I acknowledge and I understand what that fear is. That's when I can start to let go of it.
That's a good tip, because another thing that I've found said to Pete is not to repeat. And he said, what do you mean by that? So someone or something, some situation happens to us that we don't like. And we obsess and we repeat, repeat, repeat. And we seem to love to self destruct or self inflict more fear or whatever that recipe is and obsess about it because we spend time isolating, and those demons love us to be in that negative. And so trying to break that cycle and say, you know what, you've thought about this 6 times in the past 7 minutes.
Yeah.
I think you've beaten yourself up enough, Sean.
Yeah.
It's time to get off this merry-go-round and move on. And just trying to, it's almost like you should bump yourself in the head. Hey, it's enough. Have you not suffered enough thinking about this? Yes. Okay, well, I think it's time for you to move on. And it might sound crazy to talk to yourself like that, but I'm not the only one that thinks that way.
Oh, absolutely.
And so we get stuck in that rut. We're bringing us back to the ditch situation. So, again, like any tips we can share that will get us, back on the middle road, back to the center line is.
I did because I was really struggling with that, and I did an 8-week mindfulness course, and it was game changing with me because it taught me something that I didn't think about. We have 2 emotions when we're dealing with something. We have the emotion that, I'm angry.
Yeah.
But then I've got a second emotion that I'm angry that I'm angry. Somebody says something to me and it hurts my feelings or whatever. A lot of times the stronger emotion is that I'm upset that I got upset. And that emotion is so much stronger than the initial emotion, because that's the one that beats us down. It's like, why do I take this stuff? Why am I so sensitive and all this kind of stuff? And what I found, and same with me, like when it comes to letting go, it's like, I'll get upset about the situation, but then I'll get upset about the fact that I can't control it. And what mindfulness helped me realize to do is to accept that, I'm angry about it, and it's okay to be angry. And if I can get to the point where like I said, I'm not angry about being angry, I'm just accepting that I am angry. It's amazing when you can look at it that way and look at it almost like from a non-judgmental. That's the biggest thing. It's like, man, you're really angry. That's just, yeah, that's interesting that you'd get that worked up about it. But like I said, not to say, what, Craig, why? Just taking a very non-judgmental approach to the emotion that I'm having and accept it. And it's amazing how much it just goes away. And I mean, we can get into, I have a higher power. I offer, when I'm struggling with something, I ask God. I ask my God.
Yeah, I talk to him quite a bit.
Yeah, so do I. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes I've had some rough conversations with...
he can take it.
Yeah, he can take it. Normally it comes out that I end up apologizing because he was right. Yeah, if it's that secondary emotion, that can
or the
really...
revenge piece.
Yes.
Right? Like somebody did something and whatever it was, but in our mind, if we think that we somehow have to even the score or get back to them.
Yeah.
And again, that's an addiction in itself, because what would be enough?
Yeah. Well, and
for the crime that was committed against us, whatever it was.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, this is, the acknowledging that we're not doing anything for anybody, but we're only hurting ourselves.
That's exactly the whole message. We pay twice, one for whatever initially happened.
Yeah.
But we start beating ourselves up in that repeated phase. That is, if you brought yourself away from it and looked at it from 30,000 feet, you would say, okay, idiot, you've paid 10 times now.
Yeah.
And it's enough now. Like you need to let this go, but you won't. And that's what I'm trying to work on the pieces is how can we learn to let go a lot quicker and move on.
And I think that, you know what, the first step of it is accepting, you know, accepting the emotion that you have, you know, like I said, if you're angry about something, resentful towards somebody and this kind of thing, if you can accept that, you know, you are feeling the way that you're feeling and your feelings are valid, whether, you know, then it's the first step to being able to acknowledge, you know, to let go of it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I think it does. To me, it just like I said, it blew my mind when I thought about how much, because we beat ourselves up about a lot of things. Like I said, somebody might say something that hurts our feelings. 9 times out of 10, we're more angry about the fact that, you know, they're just words, but we let those words affect us in a
Do
certain
we
way.
ever?
Yeah, and if we can just, you know, if if we can if we can just accept the fact that, you know what, because, you know, nobody wants to feel like they're sensitive. You know, I don't know, especially guys. You know, if we can accept for the moment that is, yeah, you know what, that hurt my feelings, and, you know, that's okay. And, you know, I don't know why, you know, and then, like I said, dig into it. Why did it? You know, what part of my ego? And then you
It's
start to make change.
most of it for me is ego and pride.
Oh, for sure.
Pride is one of the worst. And like you say, like someone could be teasing you or whatever. It just seems to hit a sensitive nerve, which is almost like everything to an alcoholic or an addict, right?
Yeah.
Because we don't want to. It depends on the context. If your buddy can be joking around, say, you know, idiot, no, 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 and it doesn't bother you, right? But all of a sudden, you know, in a certain tone or whatever, it, it may be the same person saying it, and all of a sudden it's cutting, you know, right to the bone, and we're all of a sudden taking offense by it. It's moods or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, but as you said, you know, and if you can look at it logically, it at least it helps with me, is to say, why does that bother me? You know, because I have a couple of things that I can remember happening, and it was 20 years ago, and I can remember, it's like that person said something, and it wasn't even that big of a deal, but it got under my skin, and I would remember it, and it struck a nerve. So, I did work on those, and just basically looked at it and say, why, I mean, they said it, they, like I said, they're just words, but why does it affect me? What part of my ego was struck? What part of my insecurity did they hit? And if I can figure that out, then it's like, you know what? Yeah, okay, I've got insecurities about this. I won't do that anymore. You know, I
But
can.
like you say, like even in your situation, we're insecure about a lot of stuff.
Oh, for
I
sure.
mean, I know for sure you're proud of your music, but there's a little piece of you that's like, you know, I'm going to put it out there into the world. So, you know, again, you got to let it go.
Mm-hmm.
You go up on stage, and there's your fear, which used to probably take 5 or 10 minutes to dissipate. There's still that.
Oh yeah.
And that takes maybe a minute and a half. Now it goes away, but everything we go to do is attached to it. Like, I mean, I don't think about it that much, but I publish a podcast. I have yet to get any really critical reviews,
Yeah,
but
but you probably will.
there probably will,
Yeah.
and I've kind of got myself ready for it. But I'm probably never going to be ready for the day that I open it up and, you know, no, 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 there it's going to be just glaring, and I'm just going to be like, you know, it's
Yeah.
going to be time to call up the psychiatrist or whatever. But I mean, we're putting ourselves out there.
Yeah, and I mean, when it comes to that, 90% of the people who do that kind of stuff, it's about them, not you. There are going to be people who are just, and that's the thing is, I know that, there are going to be people who are, gonna, gonna listen to my music and maybe, tell me I don't know. It's like, man, you sound like Barry Manilow or something like that, or somebody that I just, and I had that happen
Oh, you did?
years ago. Years ago, I used to play piano and I did a lot of ballads, and the guy said, "Man, you sound a lot like Barry Manilow." And oh, that struck a nerve. That was the last thing that I wanted to, hear. But if we can prepare ourselves, we're never going to be prepared for what they're going to say.
But he actually, well, but Barry Manilow was actually pretty successful.
Oh yeah,
I mean, nothing to be ashamed of.
I know, but
I mean,
I wanted to be a rocker. And I think the thing that hurt my feelings more than anything was he wasn't that far off, because I was playing ballads, and I was playing soft rock, and I wouldn't have been on the rock station. So I think that's what hurt my feelings, and that comes back to what we were talking about. When somebody says something, if it hurts our feelings in some way, do we think it's true? Because when somebody says something that you just completely dismiss, it doesn't bother you. But when somebody insults you on something,
and you think there's a shred of truth.
I think that's when it really hurts your feelings, when there's part of you that says, you know what, maybe it's an insecurity that you have about yourself, and so.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I never thought of that. It bothers you because you know that
it's something maybe that you don't like about yourself, but you think that it's part of you. I used to have, in work, they used to give me a hard time because they said I was quite uptight, and that used to bother me so badly. And you know what? I think it bothered me because I knew that they were right. I was uptight. I was pretty high strung, pretty wound up tight. And, so, when the best thing that happened to me is I did things like I learned how to meditate. I did mindfulness workshops. I did all of this stuff, to practice, to do all these things. And now I'm not wound up anymore.
Yeah, that raises another point. We're getting out of time, but
pardon me.
That's a common theme too, and I know exactly what you mean. And I think we have to be in that state so that we feel that we're functioning, we're there.
Yeah.
It's like Robin Williams. When he went on stage, he didn't come out and go, "Hey, how's it going?" He was like, "Bah." He was there, and then he was in the groove.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that I'm like, but I'm saying there is a little bit of a similarity that I was a type because I had to be in that certain vibration in order to think that I was, really working, firing on all cylinders. And I think that's a common theme too. We're going to have to explore that a little bit more in another time. But I do want you to come back, play some guitar, and we're going to promote the hell out of this thing.
Well, I would love that. Yeah.
It's going to be awesome.
Right on. Well, hey, thanks again for having me.
Well, thanks for coming. All right. Well, everybody, take another 24. We'll see you next week. Thanks a lot.